everybody. Welcome back to Conversations in Ken's Cafe. We're going to have a fantastic talk on biochar today with Peter and Kenneth from the Biochar Coalition. So, guys, I want you guys to introduce yourselves and how you got into this. So, let's start with you, Peter. How did you get into biochar and why?
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Ken, for having us. So I got into biochar through prescribed fire. So let's see, like 5 years ago, I got introduced to prescribed burning. For really, it came about from an ecological standpoint of learning the role of fire within ecology. And we're both here in California, and there's a very rich history all over the state with fire being used as a tool for fiber, for food, for basketry, for many other forms of sustenance for the Native Americans. So I came into this from prescribed fire, and just one thing led to another. It's like the community, the fire community is really well connected in that way, and so it's just for me. I adopted it as just another tool in the basket for running fire and working with fire and developing an ongoing relation with it too.
Yeah. Well, there's so much that can be done, not just burning, to clean things up, but to make things better and that's what you guys got into. So, Peter, how about you? Where did you get your connection to biochar and the Biochar Coalition?
So that started with a friend of mine who makes his own kilns. He makes these custom flame cap kilns on a stand, and I started with that. I really started with just random bits of half rotten pallets and just scrap wood, whatever I can find. I was just like charring and then flood quenching it. And making char that way, nails in it. I none of that mattered to me. And it just kind of grew from there and more, and got introduced to the kiln that we use, the Ring of Fire flame cap kiln. And from that developed, a lot more of the nuances to making char.
Fantastic. Yeah, it can be quite the process. There's all types of different methods to do it, and you guys are using Kelpie Wilson's kiln, and if anybody wants to, they can check it out on the Soil Matters and Conversations in Ken's Cafe, as we've had Kelpie on quite a few times already. But Kenneth, how did you get into the biochar?
Certainly. So my one friend back on the East Coast, John Marr, who is subsequently now a board member, we grew up in our early adulthoods together, and he has a preschool and he has a small garden, and he's been looking up ways to really store and make carbon, and he found biochar because we were doing compost together on his farm for the children. And so he's like, Ken, you do the mealworms, you do the frass, you grow insects. You should look into this biochar and see what's going on because you can put your nutrients and whatnot. And he's just stimulating me on making. He's kept bugging me in 2018, 19. And then I really started progressing my insect business where I was producing insects for birds. I just wanted to feed birds. I wasn't like planning to sell the worms, anything. I just wanted to give the birds in my backyard a better protein source. So from there, the biochar just became a really great thing. So I started experimenting with fermenting insect frass. And I was like, wow, if we can just pour this into the biochar and make this stable, and then we can bag it up, and then it doesn't have to stink. We just put it in this dry material. So then I met a woman in 2020, came out of California, and I found out about the Kelpie Wilson kiln. I'm like, wow, this is exciting. Like, really, we can make a lot of freaking biochar in these kilns. Because first we were like thinking about the Jolly Roger oven, and that thing was a small container. It was like a 50-gallon drum, and there's a 35-gallon stainless steel. You want to use stainless steel because the outside drums would burn up in like 20 burns because it gets so darn hot. So I was just always upset with like, okay, we can't make much biochar. This isn't feasible. And then bam, the kiln came around. I'm like, this is perfect, community kiln. And then I found it through the Mesa program. Butte College was running biochar education that PG&E, believe it or not, was financing to get these kilns right in Paradise, right in California, like Butte County, where the campfire occurred. That's where I learned after the devastation, destruction, these people are going through it, and there's these kilns there and these programs, and everyone knows how important biochar is. There's a man named Stephen Faher who was working with Kelpie Wilson on the Mesa program. They had about $192,000 to run this education, 2 years, and then it was submitted, and the students got to go to Washington, D.C. It was an EPA grant, and on top of that, PG&E. So it was a huge community effort to get this money and get these kilns. And they're like the first mock models that Kelpie produced, and we were experimenting with them. So fast forward from that, 2020, boom, we're building, growing, doing more kilns, doing public seminars. We had figured, because Kelpie took that out, she started a lot of this, like, let's go out and show the world. Let's get everybody out there in front of the kilns, experience the flame, experience the heat. That's what we felt. We were like, I'm about that because I'm a Leo sign. I love fire. Give me more fire. And that was it. It's getting people introduced back into flames because these people were traumatized. They just went through that campfire. It was 84 people had just lost their lives in their community, and tons of people lost their homes and their livelihood, and things were in the sensation of rebuilding. And they had this image of a phoenix, right? A phoenix and flames, and except they say rising from the ashes. So we're like, let's take that, but we aren't making ashes. We're rising through our biomass to create carbon. And that was our message in Paradise. We did a lot of work, and in Butte County. And then we started expanding out. We met people in Nevada City, and then Peter had history in Nevada City, and from there we just kept growing and growing, and then we met more people. And Peter, I think 2023 you joined, right?
Yeah,
just around there. So, and Kelpie has always been, she helped us a lot. She gave us kilns in the beginning and really helped us get enough material to make this look, because I always wanted to go landscape scale. I want to go big. Like one kiln was never enough for me. I want to get like 10, 20, 50, 100 kilns on a ridge line, like really reducing the biomass, bringing the people around. Like that's what I saw. I saw this as like a community party. Like we're partying around the flame. And I'm like, okay, we need fire professionals. Everybody loves fire. Let's grow that. So that's what happened with me. That's where I got started. And it was just, I always wanted to build a community around the kiln.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you had that many kilns on top of the ridge, they'd see it from space, man. I mean, come on. That's what happened. That's a real party. And have you guys started taking it to Burning Man and doing some stuff at Burning Man?
Yes, actually we have. We actually have been thinking about creating like our own biochar man, or like something like that, or asking them, because we know a lot of people who go there. We're right near that place. Like we have land really close to Reno and all these other areas. And Triangle, was it Triangle Lake or something or whatever? Sorry, I'm not a Burning Man. Pyramid Lake. Yeah, right near there.
Pyramid Lake,
So we really do want to. So if you know anybody, if your audience knows anybody, and maybe they'd want to kind of, comp our tickets, comp our time, like, because it takes a lot of resources for us to move around at times. So whatever it takes, we want to do it. If it can happen, it can happen. If it doesn't happen, whatever, we'll make it happen, right?
Well, actually, if you reach out to them, they have people that come in, and I think they have funds available, but don't quote me on that one. But I know that there is stuff that you can get on the list to go in to Burning Man to do stuff. So that might be definitely something you guys are going to want to reach out to them on.
And I like to let your viewers know is that we're all over this country. We do seminars in New York. We do seminars in Vermont. I'm about to go to the East Coast to do some seminars in Vermont and New York. So there's viewers who are out there and they're like, oh, I live in New York. Just visit our website and like biocharcoalition.org. If there's an event near you and happening, by all means, like we want to reach out, right? We're breaching the ignorance of making people ash holes.
Yep. Now I did put your the website on the screen, and it is in the description, guys. And I know you guys have a schedule on page on your website, so people can go there and check out, what you guys are doing, where you're going to be. So guys, don't hesitate if you're interested in biochar. Now, Kenneth, you were talking about the barrels, and that's generally what they call a T-lud, a top load updraft. And yeah, there's a lot of information on those types of kilns out there, and you're totally right on having the stainless steel so that it doesn't burn the barrels out. I've heard of people grabbing beer kegs and all kinds of different things to try it. But there's a lot of different ways in the large burn biochar that you guys are really focusing on. That's really for a larger community, and where people, like me, just personally at my home, I can do the same basic thing just by digging a conical hole in the ground. But I want people to really understand the method behind it. And I know you guys had some videos that you were going to show, so maybe that would be a good time to bring that back up, Ken, so that people can see and you guys can describe what the heck is going on and why you're doing it the way you're doing it.
Yeah, certainly. We can review some of these slides that I presented to the UCANR. You can see my screen, correct?
Yeah, it's up on the screen now.
Great. Yeah, I mean, what we do use are these ring of fire kilns. Let me find the diagram. I have a nice diagram here for everyone to kind of get an idea. Right here on this flame cap pyrolysis, we're using these ring of fire kilns. There's in here. I'll make this a bit bigger for everybody so we can kind of see this better.
Yep.
What you see on the right where it says illegal, that's a burn barrel. A lot of areas in California, that's illegal. But we advocate for the ring of fire biochar kiln because you'll see, I'll press play, you can see how the smoke gets recombusted into the kiln. It's a pretty big kiln. Let me see if I can go back. You can kind of see it here. I'm going to hit this play button. You can see it in a time lapse of how big this apparatus is. It's about 4 to 5 feet, 4.5 feet tall. And it's modular, so you can put these things together as much material you need that you have on site. You can adjust the kiln to fit just the right amount, because burning, you want to make sure it's optimized. You don't want much space when you're burning. So that's what these kilns really offer us, is a modality. You can see the size of the person standing next to the kiln. They're very rugged, very small equipment. And that's what we're using on the scale. We can put like 10, 15, 20 of these kilns up if we had enough people. Like 30 people could probably run 20 kilns pretty simply. And
now, if I remember right, you can actually load this into the back of a medium-sized SUV. Is that not right?
Yeah, I'll show you a photo of how actually hilariously transportable these kilns are. The president of our organization, you'll see right here. It's hilarious how he puts it on top of his Yaris.
How cool!
So I mean, it doesn't get more portable than a 4-banger Toyota. I mean, everyone talks about life cycle assessment and how much it takes to get machines and all this stuff to the job site. That's one of the most fuel efficient vehicles on the road, delivering carbon sequestrating powerhouse.
Yeah, it's a simple tool like that.
It's incredible, really, what is possible for our communities.
Well, and that's what I want to make people or have people understand, that you don't need a pickup. You don't need all this other things. It's so much easier to do it. Like, people load your skis or your kayak or whatever on top of your car. You could be loading this and taking it out, to your friends, your family's acreage. It's just so simple. Now, you do have to soak it down. So do you guys have a water truck, or how do you do that side of it?
Yeah, we can quench in as little as 150 gallons for 3 yards of material.
And generally, we always have water tenders, or we have water on site, or we can use dirt. We've done dirt. We've used it just rained the other day, so the dirt's really wet. We just can throw the dirt on top of it and quench out. So, it's just per situation. Generally, we do prefer water. Absolutely, it makes life a lot easier. And if you're approaching a kiln without water, it's it's a struggle.
Yeah. And you could even do it in the rain if things lined up correctly. You could just rain quench.
Yeah.
So you see, like right here, you can see us spraying it down, right? And we're actually putting fertilizers on there. We kind of treat the material as a sponge. It's a carbon. It's void by the time we're done cooking this stuff off. So that's what the best part about biochar burning is, that you're just making a blank canvas.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and the thing is, and we were talking
Kevin,
about
we're having a hard time hearing you.
Oh,
Seems
okay.
like lower.
How about now? Can you turn your speakers up? I'll turn.
There you
go. Okay.
I just want to make sure viewers can hear you too.
Yeah. Let me do it this way. Okay. How's that? Might be. Can you hear it now?
Yeah, you still sound kind of like in the background, but hey, it's all good.
It's better.
Yeah.
Okay. I just turned myself up. Sometimes I can get a little loud, so I try to moderate. Yeah, and Silly Lily's saying your sound is fine on our end, so the audience is hearing me good. So we were talking about the quenching, and you can do it with water. You can do it with dirt. Now, when they used to do burns for charcoal, for making charcoal for their fires, etc., they used to do a lot of that underground, and then they just cover it with dirt and sod. So you can basically do that with a biochar. Now, guys, to understand, and this is for the audience, biochar is basically charcoal until you add the biology, and that's what makes it biochar. And Kenneth, you were mentioning earlier, you're making insect frass, etc. Maybe just give us a brief rundown on why, like, you started doing that for the birds, but why you're putting that into the biochar. What's the purpose of that, and what's it adding to the biochar?
So there's one thing to kind of separate away is we tend to say charcoal is for cooking, but biochar is for growing.
Yes.
So one of the main differences for that is there's a test we do. One of the physical characteristics after we make the char, and that is we rub it on our hands and get our hands wet. And if the black still sticks to our hands, then there's still an oil content that was not completely burned off.
Yes.
It depends how oily your hands were before you did the test too. Right? You got to make sure. Yeah. But I'm gonna show you guys a document, because you asked about the insect frass and whatnot. Here's right on our website. We offer these trifolds. We kind of give people an idea of what it takes to kind of give biochar a solid biological bath. You know, that's what it is. It's here to take on biology, right? Biochar, biological charcoal. And people sometimes try to say that this is charcoal, but actually, no, it's different. It's not really charcoal. Charcoal's built for cooking, like Peter said. And we're making biochar with no volatiles. We want nothing in there, so we can do this enrichment process. You'll see on the bottom here is a biochar that we enriched with liquid ferment. We like to ferment. We like to create a really acidic mix, because biochar is kind of alkaline. You can have between 8 to 9, depending on the temperatures, how much ash you made. You know, I've seen it up to 10 to 11 in some cogen plants. So when we're looking to make sure enriching biochar, we want to make sure we're using acids. And if you don't have any acids, you don't know the chemistry, you don't care about this stuff, just composting it, and then even just scattering it 1 inch above the surface of the ground without putting it in the ground, eventually nature will do it for you.
Nature always does it for you.
So, like I said, I recommend everybody maybe look into what biochar, like alchemically, because this is chemistry. Like, we're wizards and witches, right? We're brewing ferments and working with life liquids. Well, that's what we're trying to do. This is alchemy. So and carbon is a pretty divine substance, and because you bring up a lot of quantitative sensing, like Q sensing. and making sure that biology is present, and making sure that now we're moving into a new age of biologicals, not synthetics. We're gonna make it real, right?
Yep. So you were saying that you're adding, your insects, frass, and your teas, etc. After you're soaking it down after the burn. How much, because it's really really hot when you first dump it out. How much time or water are you putting it on before you're adding those biologicals? Because you don't want to kill them, right?
Right. When we're adding the biological life, let me just stop the stream. When we're adding the biologicals to the charcoal, you really don't want it soaking wet. I like to dry up the char a bit, let it, when I quench it out, let it kind of dry up a bit, and then when I create the liquid, then I kind of just pour the charcoal into the liquid. I don't want to be mixing around dry material, throwing dry material around because of the dust. That's a huge thing about biochar when you really understand is it makes a lot of dust when it's dry, and handling it as little as possible when it's dry is probably your best option if you want to live a long time. Especially when you're quenching the coals too. When you're quenching coals, there's a lot of dust that can be made. There's some disclaimers here for the audience that biochar making is a dirty job. Mike Rowe did it. If you want to watch his episode when he joined James Gaspard at Biochar Now, who's making sustained kilns, they're closed units, really cool stuff what he's working on. And he goes and they go to clean the apparatus, and you can see how messy this stuff can get. So never work with the material when it's super ultra dry. I always say, get it when you quench it, put it in a closed bag, feed bag, get it into something. Letting it lay around is great if that's your intention. But if your intention is to move the material, leaving it there, like winds, I've seen winds take the dust. I used to work in industrial scale biochar making facilities with air curtain burners, and they would stack that material 10, 20 feet tall, and then the wind would come. You'd see a black cloud shooting across, which I was excited because it was hitting this field, right? This random field is and it's where all these grazers were. It's rocky, and because we're in California, we got a lot of really weird terrain. We live near Lassen volcano, and that thing exploded and set rocks a lot of these grazelands that are here. So, and we live on lava caps in some areas. So it was nice to see that biochar hitting those lava caps and creating potential for more soil. So, but I just want your viewers to know, just be careful. And when it is wet, and I just crush it when it's wet. People want to crush it all the time. Crushing it is a thing because depending on what you're using it with, there's so many ways. I'm sure you've crushed. Do you have any stories of your adventures? Because there's a lot of crushing biochar.
I've seen guys, in running over it with cars and trucks.
That's a really good method because it will destroy wood chippers. Through the process, you're essentially structuring the carbon. You're tempering it really into a crystal. We're taking the first steps from wood into a diamond. Basically, we're recreating the conditions that geology would do over the course of millions of years within 6 hours. So there's quite a change to that, and I've heard of hammer mills being used in that way. And I'd say just crushing it wet. Really,
always wet. Always use material wet, and then once it's wet and you want to enrich it, kind of just let it dry out. The drier you have the material, the faster the water and the liquid's going to suck into it. And depending on the pH of your liquid too, if you have a high acidity, because the biochar is great because I like that it is alkaline. That's one of my favorite things about biochar because it gives me that if I want to sever proteins and I want to bring something into alkalinity really fast, like an alkaline step procedure, definitely, because that's what purifies DNA. It rip everything apart. It shreds DNA when you add it because of the high alkalinity. It's just incredible. You can see it. If you have intense acid, you're adding, you should all the bubbles, everything's just ripping apart, reorganizing. So that's why I like how it is. That's why I add it to. You can add it to stinky stuff, and it, within a few moments, if you add the right amount, it doesn't stink anymore. So when just mixing the charcoal and understanding, all right, we need acids, right? Where do we get acids from? And to me, the only way I know acids get made in abundance is fermentation.
Yeah.
And that's what led me to fermenting bug poop and be like, okay, what do we ferment this with? What biology can I work in synergistic ways and make this, what is it, detritic? I don't know, there's weird words, but goos, like decompose really high nutrient dense, like humics and stuff. Detriolic, I'm sorry, I can't come up.
Detritus?
No, it's like detriet. I have a cool photo of it, but sorry, I'm not scientific. I've been getting scientific with it, but that's what we do. We just break down material, make it really biological, active, cleanse it up with the alkaline step. Bam, it resets with the acidities because you balanced it out, and then you just dry it out, and there you go. Your char's ready to go. That's what I do.
Now, how do you guys, or how are you spreading it? Like you mentioned, if you just spread it out, without adding anything, it eventually the biology from the soil is going to populate it, and if it's in a forest, it's going to slowly get worked into the soil as the leaves and etc. bury it over time. But generally, for most people, how are they spreading it out? So, like say they're on an acreage or a small farm, how are they using it?
Yeah, through the kilns, because it's part of the quenching process, and that's a just really easy way to get like a 1-inch thick mat.
And if we're out in the fields, like when I work with farmers, we kind of try to get it down to consistency depending on what they have. Like if they have a slurry spreader, we need to kind of be a bit powderized. If we're using a manure spreader, it doesn't matter. They can just throw chunks. That thing will just chuck chunks out. We've had hydro seeder guys where it's got like an auger in there and it's already kind of breaking it up as it's going through. So you just don't add big pieces, kind of like shardy stuff, and then it just shoots it out as a liquid. And then we have like almond spreaders. People who do the almond, they get the almond hulls and they drop that stuff off at big waste facilities. The charcoal will just sprinkle down. They just open it up a little bit and they drive down the field. And then behind them is a guy tilling it in. And they try to get it enriched as possible, as good as possible. So generally, I've seen them pour. They get the trucks to come out and then they just pour the liquids on top of the trucks and it turns over. They just turn it over with like a front loader and then they load it on the manure spreaders. And then they just launch that stuff all throughout their fields. I've seen pasture guys. We're actually going to be working in New York this upcoming for the 29th, March 29th. We're helping a farmer. He's got manure spreaders. He's already kind of making it with his compost. And that's how he's applying is he's using the manure spreader. And he says it's having great results for him because it doesn't really matter how fine the material is. It's just got to be, to a certain consistency. But generally when we're making the biochar in the kilns, we're getting like a really nice, like 4 different coarse varieties. You get like big chunky stuff, you get more coarse, you get fine grain, and then you get all these other like shardy styles. And that's what we think is best because we're at a permaculture design. Everything is supposed to be one way. You're supposed to have diversity of all kinds of structures, shapes, sizes, and that's how I think like a hodgepodge of sizes seem to work best for spreading that stuff. But like I said, if you need a slurry, you want to inject that, well, then you got to get powderized biochar. Like we've seen the wands, those big things they shove into the ground and then it shoots the liquids out. Guys are using that here, and we're really dialing that in. I see it used all the time with compost teas, but now people are evolving with compost teas and the carbon.
Well, yeah, people don't understand. We're all carbon-based life forms, whether it's plants or animals. We need that carbon. And, the biochar, guys, just so you guys are understanding, biochar is not a usable carbon for making, us or organic life. It's locked up, like Peter was saying. It's that point where it's heading towards a diamond, but you're not going to eat a diamond and expect your body to break it apart and use it. That's the same with biochar. It's not an organic carbon that can be used, but it's a carbon that is so full of spaces where the biology can live in. It's like putting in apartment buildings, and it's also paramagnetic. Do you want to talk about that for a moment?
Yeah. So I always like to think of it like this. Well, there's an additional property to it, and it's called the cation exchange capacity.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine for a second, like a car battery. So what is very unique, and this is over the whole spectrum of the carbon atom itself, is that it creates bonds very easily.
Mm-hmm.
So carbon can create more molecules than all other elements of the periodic table combined. Just the variety is insane, and that's the reason why we're carbon based. So for char, when it's in that form, it provides donor electrons to the microbes, because that is the driving force that is for the metabolism for the microbes. It's just electron sharing.
That's highly negative. Right?
Yeah, it's hence cationic, so negative. And so when you incorporate it into compost, you finish it quicker because it's providing all these electrons for the metabolism to occur.
Yeah, we're in the electronic universe, and when we add more of that, because the negativity of the carbon, we're attracting the positive polarities of, let's say, lead or cadmium or all these other toxic metals that have infiltrated our ecosystems, and the dioxins and the furans and all the PHPs, so the PBOS,
ammonia, methane,
leachates. Yeah. Think about nitrogen. This is the greatest part about the carbon and the flame is, like you said, the magnetism of it. Like, people get mad at me that I'm so negative sometimes. Well, you know what? I make a lot of negative material around here. You know, I'm on a lot of black, and I feel sucked in. Like, you know, they say the color black is Saturnian and all that, but you know what? I'm ready for it. Let's go. Let's suck all the toxins. Let's reset a little bit. Let's filter it, because we use wattles. We know the magnetism. That's why we throw them in wattles. We dispatch the biochar in some of the most sensitive areas that are very polluted, like mines. Like out here, everyone knows how California was mined to death and logged to death. So this is why we're experimenting. We're going out there just dispatching wattles, even without permission, because we know that we need to do this right now. We can't wait. Things are at a critical turning point. We need to do something now. And what better way than putting biochar in a sock and let it filter your water without causing turbency? We rinse the material out, because you know there's so much that goes into using biochar for filtration that you really need to know kind of like what you're doing, so you can best introduce the biochar into aquatic life forms. And I have to credit Michael Whitman of Blue Sky Biochar for his pioneering efforts. Like, if you ever want to talk to a guy about understanding how biochar works in aquatic environments, that's the guy you really need to reach out to, because he's shown me and taught me so much about his trials, and I recommend you reaching out to him.
Well, you'll have to connect me to him, and we'll definitely have him on, because the aquatic side of life is where the biology started from, was coming out of the aquatic side. But let's get back to that wattle. You want to describe what a wattle is, because I don't know that everybody knows that term and what it's used for. I personally know what it is and what it's used for, but can you explain it to the general populace?
Sure. So another name for it is a filter sock, erosion filter sock. So traditionally, it's used alongside roadways, around or anytime there's the movement of dirt, and it helps to stabilize or at least mitigate sediment runoff when there's the movement of dirt. Usually in construction, it's usually straw that they use as the filter catch, and it comes in these plastic nets that they roll out and stake for that to occur.
And you see on the right side of the screen is one of those wattles that we dispatch right near a stream. And like Peter said, they're definitely dispatched near erosion control, especially if you've been through construction sites. That's where I see them used quite a bit. because they're trying to stop the runoff, to slow it down, check damming it. That's our term, because water on, if anybody knows hydrology or anybody here is into that, it's all about slowing the flow of water down on a landscape to stop it from eroding. Because water, when it's running down a hill, a huge slope, people don't understand it cuts things out. Like, you can tell where something's eroded.
Yeah, I heard when you double the velocity of water, you quadruple the erosion capacity for it.
Okay. So, it's supplying a definite benefit, because, the carbon is grabbing the, forever chemicals coming off of the fields, etc., and is sequestering it into that wattle. And it'll last an extremely long time. But do you guys pick those wattles up and remove them after it's done its job, or do you guys just let it break apart over time, or how do you guys take that?
Yeah, here's the best part about what we're trying to improve on erosion management and erosion control is we're working with organic fiber producers. So we're taking on material that isn't going to create microplastics, and then we can leave that there indefinitely in the area, because we enrich this wattle. We make sure there's mycelium growing in there. Sometimes we add compost. We're generally just adding the next soil successional in a berm that's going to catch all the other sediments for a short while, break down, and then naturally dissipate and become part of the environment, where you don't even know that wattle was there, but you can see the erosion retention in the sediments, and then it'll grow, and then our goal is to plant native species, native plants, respecting ecosystem in a way that we can modify it in that to have better succession. So yeah, we leave that there. We want that's done. That's permanently sequestered. That's part of this is it. We have done everything we could, give nature the best chance to do the successional thing.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, are you guys adding stuff into the water itself? Like you mentioned, cleaning the water and that's flowing down, but are you guys actually adding biochar into water bodies? Because I know that would be actually very beneficial to those water bodies.
I've experimented a little bit doing beaver dam analogs and putting big chunk pieces, because I don't quite really know what I'm doing in aquatic environments right now. So I don't want to oversaturate biochar in a river or a stream.
Salinate.
Yeah, I don't want to salinate, because biochar's pH, we've done this before. We've practiced this in aquariums, and we saw what happened instantly when we added biochar to the aquarium. The pH went up super quick, and you could tell, if we left like that, the fish were going to start struggling. So we're nervous to just willy-nilly go out there and just start dumping biochar in your streams or estuaries, because quite honestly, that's why we think the sock is our best option. And putting it near a water channel, putting it near a riparian zone, so it's slowly filtering, slowly adjusting its pH that matches the environment, or we can condition this to know what we're putting this material in. So yes, I have done that. I have put charcoal in streams and dirty Caltrans ditches where I know all the rubber from the tires is just, after a rain, is just really toxic and gross, and then I've seen it come out clear. So those are the areas I will go to, because I know I can't really mess it up. But I would never go to a virgin stream with it's beautiful and protected and it's fine. I would never just start dumping stuff into a stream like that. So I pick and choose my battles. Where I know I'm not going to mess anything up is usually where I like to work, because it's already gross, it's already sucks, and people need help. So that's kind of my gauge. What about you, Peter?
Yeah, same thing. This is for remediation, not trying to fix something that's already fine.
And I agree with that, by the way. Yeah,
great. I'm glad, because that's the thing. We're just not trying to be Superman. We just want to be super where we are when we can, right? Super can.
Well, like you were saying, in a lot of areas in California, there was a lot of the mining, and you have a lot of tailings. that, every time it rains, there's stuff coming out of those tailings. So I know that at the end of those streams, there's, really damaged environments that could be beneficial to have some biochar, in the way of it, holding the water back. And also, you guys consider, or you kind of mentioned it, where you're putting the wattles where it's backing the water up so the water can saturate in the soil more. Are you guys, purposely trying to set up, like, say 3 or 4 in a row so that you can do that, that retention?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the goal is because wherever this guy, it's about 14 cents a foot for these fabric socks.
Right.
So, we can buy a pallet for like $4,400, gives us about 6 to 7 miles of erosion and filtration control. And we can fill up all 7 miles of that sock. We're going to do it. If we get a grant and we get money and support, we are going to do that. We have tons of places where we want to do that. So absolutely, we are stacking systems on systems on systems. And it's not just walls, right? It's going to be a lot more than that. It's like making sure also that we're not removing all the slash. We're making structures that will hold and retain the water systems next to a wattle. Like wattle will support, let's say there's a log on contour. We drop a tree on contour. We limb it up, make the biochar from the limbs, put the biochar in a wattle near the trunk of the tree in front of it and also behind it. Let that go through 1 year succession, and then bam, we come back, we start throwing native seeds, give it like a really good germination rate, and boom, now we have like this super retainment wall, and then bam, we're like, okay, well now what else can we fix on this landscape? Okay, let's put the beaver dam analog a little bit down the stream a little bit, boom, like, and then we're just working down. So we're stacking. Charcoal, to us, carbon is the foundation. So that's why we want to make sure that we're working with all forms of carbon, right? Because like you said earlier, there's the stable and there's the liable. Liable is used that year for the plant. That's like what compost generally is. It's a liable 1 year annual source that gets used up. And we're making that stable, crystalline, amorphic carbon baby. That's what the Terra Preta was all about. That's what the Malone was all about. Because there's 2 different Terra Pretas. Like, people understand that Terra Preta was like the crap, and the poop, and the jars. Yeah. Terra Malone was the good stuff that, like, we're trying to make for agriculture, where we're not burying the raw stuff. We're pre-enriching it. We know what kind of bacteria we want to use in our field. We know what we're growing. Like support likes, right? So there's a huge dynamic of that too. So yes, we're stacking systems on systems on systems.
Yeah, I recently had a call with someone that does micro remediation up in Port Angeles, Washington. He's somewhere, somewhere towards the U actually. Across the border, but gonna start working with him to develop these more and more in his own practice.
Fantastic. Well, it's really, adding it's called quorum sensing, where the biology populates that biochar to the extent where it can literally look at the life around it when it's in the soil and go, okay, we're missing these forms of biology, and they can create that biology to help, in their local environment, whether it's in Cali, whether it's in, Australia, England, etc. This is why I personally recommend people use biochar, because it's a stable form of quorum sensing. Where most people think of it as, being in an aggregate, but an aggregate, it's really easy for a worm to drill through an aggregate by your plant root, where it's really hard for that worm to try to chew through a big hunk of biochar, so it's more stable, but it's having that availability of life. I mentioned the paramagnetic, and you mentioned the, protons, electrons, etc. And guys, you have to understand that there's a lot of things that come into our systems, that need to be broken apart at that molecular level. And it's that paramagnetism that's used as any energy source to break those molecules apart. Like say your Roundup, that particular molecule needs to be broken apart into its component parts to be used in something that's good for the environment and not bad. And by having that biochar collecting that energy, and it continues to collect that energy into itself, you're accelerating that process and really helping things out. But that's kind of off on a tangent. But so I know that somebody was trying biochar in an aquaponic system. I never got a follow up on how it worked out. But have you guys heard somebody, or do you guys even know what aquaponics is? And if you do, have you heard of somebody using it instead of the normal substances that they use?
No.
The only person I know that was going to come close to that, they're switching slowly over, but they're not quite there yet. So that's to be continued. I don't know if you have any stories of aquaponic systems incorporating the biochar, but like I said, I know the aquaponic system, they're concerned about the pH of the charcoal itself. So it just has to be conditioned a bit to be used in those systems, and we'll see where that goes. But I don't know anybody using it because they usually the one guy I know, he uses molasses. I asked him, hey man, we're just coming down the chain. Like, can you add like a liquid biochar? He goes, yeah, that's going to mess up my formula. I go, I got it all pH. The pH is dialed in. I don't want to add it yet. So I don't know. We don't know anybody. I don't know anybody, but I would start experimenting with it. But we have used in an aqua system, we've taken a lot of dead fish, sugared them, threw them into a huge vat, and let them ferment. And we had to throw biochar on top of that. And we mixed it in biochar because it got real stinky real quick. The top pellicle, it was just the pellicle that got nasty, right? So we were just chucking biochar on top of that, and it stabilized it. All the flies eventually left, and we were left with a big white fuzzy mycelial yeasty, was it saprophytic?
Saprophytic.
The first stage, the first succession of yeasts and mold started forming on that, and then it became more like a humic towards the end, and then I still have that liquid, and it's fantastic. So that's my only experience with working with an aqua environment and fish. It's not quite aquaponics, however, it still was fish juice and guts, and it was really amazing.
Well, you're talking about a fish amino acid that's done in Korean natural farming, and you need the sugar cap and something to hold the fish down, or else it stinks really bad. But that's one of the things, like, for anybody on the channel that hasn't ever gotten into the indoor cannabis growing, we would always put in what's called a charcoal filter, and you would run your air through that filter before it went outside, so that when it's illegal and you have stinky cannabis, that you wouldn't be sinking out your neighbors. That's a charcoal filter, and that's what biochar really is. And when we look back at Terra Preta, that I think is because they were putting in the feces, etc., into these big pits. Charcoal has been used for decades, and the Army still uses it today to stop those odors because it captures those odors. But to get back to the aquaponic section, I know that, as I said, there was one gentleman that was going to use it in a complete bed, but there's a lot of filters. There's a biofilter generally that you put the water through that needs to be populated with the biology that produces from nitrite to nitrate, or from nitrate to nitrite. I can never remember which direction it is, but you could use the biochar in that end of it instead of actually growing in it, because it's all about having that biology existing in that system to do the job that the biochar does. But I haven't. I closed my aquaponic system down probably 5 years ago, and so I didn't find out about biochar till after I had closed that system down. But for just say somebody that wants to put some in their garden, and say they have, just normal garden beds, in soil beds, how much would you think that they should be using in those beds? And what, big sizes, small sizes, or what do you think, or what have you guys experienced?
For adding it to soils?
Yeah, for adding it to soils.
Certainly. I mean, it all depends. You generally don't want to add raw biochar, but if you're going to, I'd say a 10% to soil volume is probably kind of appropriate. But most time I don't think that's appropriate. I wouldn't ever add raw. So 10% raw. And if you're enrich it, I've gone up to 50, 60% when it's highly enriched when I do our processes, because we're generally left with a 7.2 pH biochar after we're done and fermenting it and doing our cool stuff. But if you're not testing the pH, I would enrich the charcoal and compost, and it should have a pretty decent pH by the time you're done with 7.5 or 7.6, depending on how good you are at composting. Because if you're good at composting, you're not overwatering, you're not losing your humics, you're keeping that pH relatively solid. Because you got to remember, if you're going to add biochar to compost, here's another thing: you're going to increase the pH on the outturn. So you're gonna make sure you add more acidic things like peels and meat. When meat crumbles down, man, that gets really acidic. Just people I've never known. Like, you ever put meat into like a container, in like a mason jar? I've done this because I was curious. Just let it rot in there, and I got some of that liquid, and I tested the pH. It was really low. It was like an acid. It was like 4.5 or 5.2. So just remember that if you're going to be using biochar, you need to start paying a lot of attention to pH. And if you're not into pH farming, I highly recommend it, because really that's kind of all you need to know to farm, is balancing your pHs, making sure that nutrients can get delivered. So adding it to soil, I mean, like I said, 10% raw. And if you're going to enrich it, you have like a composty biochar, 30-40%. If you have it fully enriched and it smells like soil and there's bugs living in it and ants like I see, you can use that as soil.
Okay.
Yeah, his mix, like I've gotten handfuls of his duat soup after it's been fermented in the char, and taking a handful, I can't tell the difference. It's like soil, like the char has become soil. It's so the smells are very present there of the fungal exudates.
And some of your viewers said that local microbes are best, and I can't agree more, because that's the philosophy. Local is best. Like the local air knows how to air in your area.
Yeah.
Well, we call it terra preta, and it's the environment that you live in. And if you're into Korean natural farming or natural farming, they tell you, don't go too far away to collect your microbiology. You want to stay within, I think it's 300 feet vertically, and, several miles, horizontally. But it's your local environment. And if you live on the north side of the ridge, don't take biology from the south side of the ridge, because it's different. It's the same basic biology, in like it's a protozoa, but that's a family group. On the north side, you're going to have ones that are adapted to that north side where it's cooler, etc. But there was a couple of questions, and guys, you guys, the chat's been going fairly fast. I haven't really
it's going quick
too much. But aloha from Hawaii. What wood makes the best biochar? And here we like the results from bamboo.
That's a trick question, because honestly, just make it. I mean, if whatever wood you have around, I mean, if we want to get into that, what's the best, what's this, what's that? Honestly, if I were to say that, I don't usually answer that question. I just say just make it. But I would say vineyard wood, hardwoods are probably your best bet. But I'm not gonna say, I don't even want to say that, because just make it with whatever wood you have around. You can even make it out of bones. And it's just pyrolysis. It's like even hemp is supposed to be really great. So just make it. There's no best or better. It's just depending on what you have. in your
Yeah.
area.
And we actually have a gentleman that comes on a regular basis. He makes biochar and bokashi, and it's all has a hemp farm, and he uses his hemp stock to make the char. And then of course he adds the biology to it to make it to biochar. But let's see, Squishy Mirror, do you all introduce your own microbes, and do you microscope your biochar and soils?
So microscoping biochar is a bit difficult because it's so black. You see a lot of black balls inside the microscope. So what I try to do is I make the liquid and then I look at the liquid under a microscope to verify like what I'm trying to do. Generally, I use a lactobacillus serum and I do a hyphae, a lot of hyphae. I generate that in a liquid too. So just verifying what's in my liquid before I add it generally gives me a good idea of what's left afterwards. And you can do, you can get it to separate, but it's always like, I see a lot of black spheres. I forget the name of them, but because I'm not a microscopic guy, I just look at it because everyone tells me I have to. And I'm more of like, let's put it in the ground and see what it did. And after I did it long enough, I got a system now. So
yeah. Well, and
biochar.
Yeah, Penny Pebbler, you can actually get Kelpie's book, and it's Kelpie's Kiln that these gentlemen are using with the Biochar Coalition. They have her books on their website as well. So I just wanted, that was a question that was in the chat as well. But guys, we got a couple of 3 minutes left. I do want you guys to tell us when you were saying, Kenneth, you're going to New York. You're doing something over there. When is that, and when are you guys going to be available, or can people just reach out on the website and hook up with you guys to try to set some stuff up?
Definitely, yeah. We like to travel wherever. If we can somehow make it, we just like to talk about. Let's talk about it. If you do want us out there, like I said, we're going to be in New York. March 29th. We're going to be in Vermont on March 25th and 6th. We're doing composting, VORS. It's called. It's on our website. I have some information. They've just kind of been slowly trickling because it's about a month away. So now it's really starting to speed up. So there'll be more information, but we have it on our website, VORS. If you're in Vermont, love to see you there. We're using Dory CV's kiln. Her family runs a winery down here in Napa Valley in California. So it's funny, it's like a lot of the biochar community is a small group, I must say, but it's growing like especially what you're doing here, Ken. Like, really appreciate you, man. Thank you for like getting the word out. Like, we're all doing our part, right? So yes, just reach out to us on our website. You can email us at biocharcoalition@gmail.com. Once again, it's biocharcoalition@gmail. Everything's on our about page. If you have a phone number, you can call us. We'll answer it if we're there, if we're at our desk or a computer. We're a very mobile business. We're always out there rolling around. So like I said, just reach out. We would love to talk to you. If it's not even just to get us out there, just want to talk to us. Maybe have like a one-on-one. We're always down and always open. Just like Peter. Peter will answer the phone. You might talk to Peter on the phone. You never know. Like, we all try as a board. We're a very active working board, volunteering a lot of our time to help others understand and grow their section in the world for biochar. So that's how you get in touch with us. You come to us with passion, with excitement. You just want to know things. Like, we just want to educate and reach out. We got the bug. A lot of people are getting the bug. It's been around for a while. It's a good contagion. I recommend it.
Yeah, I recommend it too.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to point out, this is from Shooting the Soil. This is somebody that is part of their livelihood is microscoping soil. And they're saying the dark field and the epifluorescence shines a lot more light on biochar. So
your viewers are very smart. I must say, I'm very impressed with their questions. I'm impressed with their knowledge. I'm just really excited because this is an indigenous practice. This is a native practice. So I respect that. The land wants this. This is what the land's asking for. And I'm here for the land. And I see your viewers. I think they're aligned with that, Ken. And let's just do this for the land.
Well, and I want to put this up here. Been a biochar guy for 14 years, preaching to deaf ears, and yeah, there's a lot of that happening. My
Yeah.
preaching about biology, it's the same way, but we're slowly, like Ken and Peter said, we're growing this knowledge, and it's through people like us and people like you that become aware and keep talking about it. It takes a community, and it's all about caring, sharing, community to get this out. Now, Kenneth, Peter, you guys are going to be back on with a couple of more people on not this coming Monday, but the Monday after on the Soil Matters with Leighton Morrison. So you guys can come and talk to them again and ask more questions, etc. Guys, Tony, Mr. Toad is going to be on with Leighton on Monday. And I know that Dr. Paula Ruffin's supposed to be doing her Sunday show in a couple of days as well. So you guys are going to want to check that out. But Kenneth, Peter, thank you so much for coming and talking about biochar. And we'll try to get you guys back on a half-assed regular basis, because this is information that really needs to get out more and more, because it is that carbon and holding that carbon that really is going to help promote the health in our soils, which promotes the health of the plants, which means when you consume that plant, hey, guess what? You get a lot more health in your body. And that's really important.
Yeah,
Guys,
just give a plant what it needs and it'll grow.
Yeah.
Like it's what it does. It wants to photosynthesize and feed exudates into the ground. It's like, I want to feed microbes, so let's just throw more microbes down, and then the plant will be like, heck yeah,
Yeah, I can build more. I can build more cells, and I can collect more light, and I can, put more magnesium in my cell structure. All right, guys, stick around, guys. I'm going to end the stream, and guys, as I said, we'll see you next on Sunday with Dr.